Well, in today's edition of What the Hell Timeline Are We Actually In Right Now? The Dow ticks up in spite of everything that's going on around the country, which is amazing. Celebrities still think that you're not good enough for them. Mayor Bowser invokes the Third Amendment, and an entire city does the Cupid Shuffle. I'm Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Folks, I have no idea what universe we're in, what timeline we're in, what any of this is at this point. I look at the news for a living. You guys support me by letting me read the news to you every day, and I can't wrap my head around any of this anymore. It is incredible. If anybody would have predicted this in 2014, he would have burned him at the stake as a heretic or an insane man. He'd be locked in Arkham right now. But this is where we live right now. This is what we have going on. So buckle up, kids, because it's not going to stop anytime soon. But before we get started, head on over to freedomscoop.com. Freedomscoop.com is going to be your one-stop shop for all of this craziness that we're seeing around over here. And we've got plenty of people to check this out at many, many, many different points of view. We have got Stephen Ignoramus. We've got the Generational Gap. We've got the R-rated conservative. We've got Freckles and Britt, Wyatt Birkenhoff, and we've got me. So come on over, check us out, buy some of our swag, and show off that you support the freedom of journalism from large corporate entities. Well, let's go look at the graph for yesterday. You know what the best part is? So far this month, which we're only, 5 days into it at this point, but so far this month, the worst day on the Dow was even. It didn't drop at all. So let's have a look at that before we get into everything else that's going on here. So if we look here, it looks like, the Dow started down below its yesterday's close line, and it kind of jump roped the line a little bit, like it tends to do, like it used to do, and it ticked up just about 11 points above where it was yesterday. So yeah, an even day on the Dow is the worst day of the month so far. It's the worst day of June. So once again, I'm looking at this and I'm saying, we're 2% off of where we were before. So take it with a grain of salt. And as I always say, I can't give you stock advice because I'm not a financier, but it is something to go and check out. So let's see what the stocks from people who do know something about this have to say from Investors Business Daily. Dow Jones futures rise before jobs report in coronavirus market rally. Tesla back in friend zone. Slack, RH lead earning movers. This is from Ed Carson. Dow Jones futures and S&P 500 futures rose solidly early Friday, while Nasdaq futures edged higher ahead of key jobs reports. The coronavirus market rally was mixed Thursday as American Airlines and other carriers soared and the Dow Jones eked out a gain, while many growth stocks retreated. Tesla sank back into the friend zone while Dexcom faces a key test. Broadcom, Slack Technologies, DocuSign, Mongo, and RH reported earnings late Thursday. Workstock, DocuStock, and MBD stock all work at home plays. RH stock is very much an economic recovery growth name. Slack stock and MongoDB stock fell overnight, while DocuSign stock, RH stock, and Broadcom stock rose. Thursday's stock market action was fun for growth investors, especially after the Nasdaq 100 briefly hit an all-time high. But in the context of powerful coronavirus stock market rally, leaders' losses generally were relatively moderate, with few exceptions such as Dexcom stock. Tesla stock fell slightly below a traditional buy point Thursday, but it's above several possible early entries. That leaves TSLA stock in the friend zone. That's ironic because few people like Tesla or Tesla stock. They love it or hate it. Notable stocks such as Microsoft and ServiceNow are also trading between various buy points. Tesla stock, Dexcom stock, Microsoft stock, and ServiceNow stock are all on the IBD leaderboard. Dow Jones futures rose 1.15% versus fair value as real economy sectors set to outperform growth once again. S&P 500 futures claimed 0.8%. Nasdaq 100 futures advanced 0.15%. In the coronavirus stock market rally, Dow Jones futures have been less volatile, but big overnight movers are still common. Dow Jones futures are likely to swing after 8:30 a.m. Eastern Time when the Labor Department releases its May jobs report. Especially with investors betting so heavily on economic recovery, economists expect a loss of 7.725 million jobs after payrolls crashed by 20.5 million in April. The jobless rate should spike to 19.8% from April's 14.7% and March's 4.4%. On Wednesday, the ADP Employment Survey estimated that private employers cut 2.76 million jobs, far less than expected. Remember, overnight action in Dow futures, work stock, RH stock, and elsewhere doesn't necessarily translate into actual trading in the next regular stock market session. But there are some things to look forward here. First off, basic construction around the Midwest and even on some of the coastal cities is going to be up, at least temporarily, of course, because everyone's going to need to rebuild these businesses or build new businesses as people get out of the cities. I think that's going to happen. So there are going to be jobs. There are going to be lots of jobs. They're going to be ready. So we'll go ahead and check that out. That's going to be something to watch. I'm actually watching the papers to see how many builders, handymans, and everything else are being requested right now because people are going to need them. And, of course, everyone else is opening up, so people are going to want people to go back to work. So, I mean, there's good news ahead. As much as they try to tell you that there's not, there is good news ahead. But you know who doesn't have good news for you? The Hollywood celebrities and newscasters and politicians that think that they're better than you. So we're going to start with everybody's favorite middle child, Jodie Sweetin. And I like Jodie. I like her career. I've been watching her since she was a kid, obviously, because I'm a Full House child. And I thought that her performance as Stephanie Tanner in the reboot series Fuller House was actually pretty good. But we're going to go back to let's read what she has to say before I go on a rant on that. So, from Jodie Sweetin's Instagram page, under a black square, because I'm doing a black square and I'm helping. If you lose fans, customers, clients, friends by showing support for Black Lives Matter, then you had shitty fans, customers, clients, and friends. It's like they didn't learn from the fucking basket of deplorables thing. And this is just it. And I'm saying the same thing that I said about, oh god, what the fuck is her name? The Charmed Lady. Oh, Alyssa Milano, that's it. It's the exact same thing that I said about Alyssa Milano. You are a good actress, Jodie Sweetin. You're an incredible musician, and you're hot. That doesn't hurt anything at all. All of this, you're incredible at what you do, but you're good at pretending to be other people. Leave the public policy to those of us who know what's going on or those of us who research it, not necessarily those of you who just take whatever the mainstream news tell them to because you're in the mainstreams yourselves. Just go back and pretend to be other people. It's what you're good at. Let the rest of us do this. And it's the exact same thing I say to Milano. But this is Basket of Deplorables 2.0. 2.0. You know, half of these people are good people, good, honest people, but the rest of them are just a basket of deplorables. And you're never going to change their mind. Well, they didn't change their mind all the way to the voting box, and that's just it. I will reach out to people from the other side and say, hey, let's have the conversation, and usually they'll shut me down or cuss at me or curse at me or anything else. I've had people tell me that I'm not allowed back into the Democrat Party, no matter what direction they take, because I once voted for Trump. They will alienate everybody else out there and wonder why they're not winning elections, and then their celebrities go out and say stupid shit like this. No, we can't try and sell our opinions. If you don't like our opinions, you're just a piece of shit, is basically what I'm seeing out of this card right here. You attract a lot more flies with honey than with the fly swatter. But yes, go keep on beating your fans over this. All right, next one here, because the politicians now have to do the same thing. From Fox News, we read, Biden claims 10 to 15% of Americans are just not very good people. This is from Joseph A. Wolfson. Former Vice President Joe Biden claimed Thursday that 10 to 15% of Americans are just not very good people. As first reported by the New York Times, Biden held a virtual town hall on Thursday evening with black supporters where he knocked President Trump's divisiveness and weak leadership. The words a president says matter. So when a president stands up to divide people all the time, you're going to have the worst of us to come out, Biden told actor Don Cheadle, who was moderating the virtual town hall. Do you really think this is as good as we can be as a nation? You don't think the vast majority of people think like that? Biden continued. They are probably anywhere from 10 to 15% of the people out there just not very good people. But that's not who we are. The vast majority of the people are decent. We have to appeal to that, and we have to unite people, bring them together, bring them together. It is unclear who exactly he was referring to within the 10 to 15% of people, and whether or not he believes that they support Donald Trump. The remarks harken back to the controversial comments made by former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton during the 2016 presidential election, when, at a campaign event, she estimated that half of Trump supporters belong in a basket of deplorables. Oh, so yes, and this is it. You dehumanize people that aren't with you 100% of the way. And once again, it goes back to what I said before. If you're not in their little club, then you're a bad person. And if you step outside of it, then you're not allowed back in. I do everything that I can to try and convince people to either look at the GOP or Liberty. I know they're vastly different at this point, but just to get away from the socialist, the progressivism, and this club that you're not allowed back into once you leave. Come out and look at the other side, because we'll let you in. We'll come out and have a beer with you. I mean, I know Republicans who are pissed off at me that I don't support Donald Trump's agenda 100% of the way, 100% of the time. But they'll still sit down and have a beer with me. They'll still sit down and talk to me. We'll still debate and discuss ideas. Whereas from things like we see from Sweden and things like we see from Biden here, they'll just chastise you and dehumanize you, because that's the scariest part. If you're not human, then it's easier to try and exterminate you, which I honestly fear might be coming. It's hyperbolic, I know, but just with the language and the rhetoric that they put onto these people, does the thought not cross your mind that it could be coming, that they could have this intention? I don't know. It's a scary thought, but it's a thought that we might be there in this country. All right, we will read from the Daily Wire. Whitmer marches with demonstrators chanting, "Hands up, don't shoot." Alternate headline. Whitmer may not be the frontrunner for the vice president anymore, so now she's doing something in a desperate bid to stay relevant because she had to open up her state and no one's paying attention to Detroit anymore. Let's read from the Daily Wire. From Hank Berrien. On Thursday, Michigan Democrat Governor Gretchen Whitmer marched along with demonstrators, with her hands held up as they chanted, "Hands up, don't shoot." The marchers were responding to the death of George Floyd, whose death while in police custody triggered protests, riots, and looting across the nation. All of this in spite of the fact that we were all united over that, but yes, of course. And that of the hands up, don't shoot thing, that was all a lie anyway. That's the worst part of it. They're continuing to spread a lie that's been debunked numerous times, but they're doing anything for relevance to try and make sure that you know that this is an epidemic going across the country, even though there's no evidence supporting that. Let's keep reading. Whitmer marching in close proximity with protesters would seem to be at odds with her own policy. In May, a Michigan barber who reopened his shop in the face of Whitmer's orders got his business and professional licenses suspended. Dana Nessel, the state's attorney general, issued a statement saying Mr. Mankey's actions in violating Governor Whitmer's executive orders as well as other health orders put the public at risk for contracting COVID-19. Anytime you have a barber or other professional providing services to numerous citizens in close proximity to each other, and those citizens are then returning to their various residencies, there is a risk of contracting and spreading the virus. It is paramount that we take action to protect the public and do our part to help save lives. Last week, the Daily Wire reported Michigan Democrat Governor Gretchen Whitmer admitted on Tuesday that her husband, Mark Mallory, asked a boating company for special treatment because he was married to her, which comes after Whitmer's office called the allegation a rumor yesterday and suggested that it could be misinformation. The controversy surrounded a report that her husband called a boating company and asked them to put their boat on the water before Memorial Day weekend. When told it couldn't be done, By then, he asked for special treatment because he was the husband of the governor. Adding to the controversy, that was the fact that Whitmer urged people not to go to that area if they did not live there, and while she and her husband own a second home there, it's approximately a 200-mile drive from their main residence, the governor's mansion in Lansing. She later claimed that he drove across the state to rake leaves at the second home and then came home. Where do you begin? There's so much to unpack here, but yes, the biggest part, of course, is the fact that Witchen. Yeah, that's a bad one. Whitmer is out there just trying to stay in the spotlight here, and I may have to retract something that I said. I have to fake news myself because at this point, I don't believe that she is the front runner anymore. But she is trying desperately to keep her name in the mouths of people, so she goes back to being the front runner for the vice presidential pick. She wants to have that presidential appointment, and she doesn't care how she gets it. So that's going to be something to watch as we go forward. And now we are going to read from Fox News. NYPD confronts George Floyd crowds as curfew takes effect. Buffalo clash gets 2 cops suspended. This is from Louis Cassiano. New York City police officers were seen clashing with demonstrators in another night of mass gatherings on Thursday in a city that has seen some of the worst violence since George Floyd protests began more than a week ago. But it was a clash across the Empire State in Buffalo that was attracting attention on social media. In a shocking video that went viral, Buffalo police were seen pushing an elderly man backwards, causing him to slam his head against the ground and appearing to knock him unconscious. Warning, graphic video. Wow, those headphones are really good. And then they just keep going. He's bleeding out his ears, someone is heard saying on the video. The 75-year-old man was reported to be in stable but serious condition in a hospital, and 2 police officers were immediately suspended. In addition, the city's police commissioner announced the start of an internal affairs investigation. New York Governor Andrew Cuomo called the incident wholly unjustified and was utterly disgraceful. Downstate, in the nation's largest city, law enforcement officers were out in force as evening curfew took effect, in an attempt to keep the peace and prevent violence that has marred otherwise peaceful demonstrations regarding Floyd, whose death while in police custody last month has ignited a firestorm of criticism of law enforcement agencies over police brutality. So here's a tip for the law enforcement agencies everywhere. Now, a lot of people in America don't trust you right now, and that is on both sides of the aisle because, you're all getting marred by one bad egg, of course, because Chauvin is a dick. And a lot of police officers across the country are getting marred just from the image of Chauvin. But if you want to regain your image at all at this point, if you think that there's any sort of repair, I got one little tip for you. Don't do shit like this, you dumb bastards. The curfews, the militarization at this point, it's just everything that they're doing right now plays right into what people are trying to say, and it's all in really, really blue areas too. Of course, that's where all the people are gathered and rioting, but yeah, if you don't want to be seen as a jackbooted fascist state, then don't be jackbooted fucking fascist, you idiots. So yeah, that's what happened there, and that's just heartbreaking to see. That's horrible. And I do hope the man winds up being okay, but my God. My God, this is the reason we're in the situation we're in right now. All right, next one here from ABC7 WJLA, out of, it doesn't say where it's out of. Maybe DC, who knows? Mayor Bowser accuses federal government of infringing on cities' rights with the National Guard. This is from Tom Rousey. On Thursday, D.C.'s mayor accused the federal government of infringing on the city's rights by calling in a large number of National Guard members and federal officers who shut down the many streets against the city's wishes. We want the military, we want the troops from out of state, out of Washington, D.C., said Mayor Muriel Bowser. That's a tongue twister. Although the city had requested help from the National Guard with closing streets to protect protesters, city officials say the federal government went well beyond what the city wanted and well beyond its duty to protect federal properties. Who had Third Amendment? Who had it? Who had it? I had it. I said it. Who else had Third Amendment? Who got a spot on their bingo card for this one? I've been saying for a couple of years, if they keep violating the Bill of Rights any further, then we're going to get down to quartering troops. And I joked with Freckle Liberty when she was on the show that she was violating the Third Amendment personally and willingly. And of course she said, well, he pays the bills. So I thought that was kind of funny. But yeah, who had Third Amendment on this one? The mayor identified Attorney General William Barr as the man ordering much of the federal response. On Wednesday, National Guard troops from various parts of the country teamed up with federal law enforcement to shut down a large number of streets, some of which not very close, to the White House. For example, roads were blocked to make it impossible to turn west from 7th Street Northwest in Chinatown, which at its closest point to the White House is still more than 8 blocks away. Many southbound turns were also blocked from L Street Northwest to the north of the White House. My vacation. We will find out in a couple days if I can even get into that city, because it looks like that might not happen. We agree that they should police around the federal areas, Bowser said, when they pushed out onto a D.C. street. That is too far, and that's what we pushed back on. Many of the streets shut down on Wednesday were reopened Thursday after complaints from the city, including the area near 16th and H, close to Lafayette Square, and the White House, which was later closed again to keep protesters safe, a reason the city supports. Streets further away were also reopened. After assessing the situation last night, towards the end of the evening, that is, late, maybe early in the morning, I felt that we could afford to collapse our perimeter and eliminate some of the checkpoints and so forth, and take a little bit more low-profile footprints, Barr said in an afternoon Department of Justice press conference. Although Bowser was pleased many streets reopened, she's still upset about the fact that D.C. is having to deal with the issue at all. Now, I couldn't find an article corroborating what I read on Twitter this morning. That's the social media site that I was looking for. Because I read, that's where I got the idea for the Third Amendment being on the bingo card, was from Twitter, obviously. And from the looks of it, Bowser's also kicking all of the National Guard troops out of the hotels. I could not find an article corroborating that, but just the same, she's kicking them off of the city streets. So, if they're off the city streets and they have no place to stay, that is the Third Amendment coming up. So, yeah, we'll look at that, keep that in mind, and once again, I do hope I can get into the city in a few days. All right, next one here from Fox News. Pelosi demands answers from Trump on troops patrolling protesters in D.C. This is from Marissa Schultz. House Speaker Pelosi said Thursday she wants answers from the president about deploying troops and unidentified law enforcement officers in Washington, D.C. Pelosi raised the alarm on the presence of soldiers, National Guard troops, FBI, National Park Service, and other unidentified federal officers making a show of force around the nation's capital amidst the demonstrations for racial justice in the wake of George Floyd's death. What's the mission? Pelosi said at a press conference on the Capitol on Thursday. Who's in charge? Who's in the chain of command? We expect an answer. Whoops. Sorry, guys. Pelosi sent a letter to Trump Thursday asking for a full list of agencies involved and clarifications of the roles and responsibilities of the troops and federal law enforcement resources operating in the city. We are concerned about the increased militarization and lack of clarity that may increase chaos, the letter said. The letter comes after largely peaceful protesters were forcefully dispersed from a park near the Washington House this week, so Trump could walk to a nearby historic church that was damaged by fire to pose for holding a Bible. AG Barr ordered law enforcement to clear Lafayette Square before Trump's visit to St. John's Church, which is funny because once again he had no idea about this at all. We have seen soldiers on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial, Pelosi's letter said. We have witnessed Bureau of Prisons officers in Lafayette Square. We have seen National Park Service officers hassling peaceful protesters. Several states have deployed members of their National Guard to D.C. This is in addition to the FBI and other security forces operating in our nation's capital. Well, at this point, yeah, you guys can go sit and fight it out. It looks like Bowser's coming in and taking a stand on this as well, but everybody needs to calm down. The president is going to do, and the Secret Service, and as well the Justice Department, are going to do what they have to do to protect the president, the figurehead, because once that bullet comes for the president, or Molotov, or whatever the hell else they want to try and lob at him to try and get him out of power, because that's the most important thing to them, that is just going to affect us on the world stage and offer in other attacks from outside of the country as well. So they're doing what they can to keep the image up there, but once again, this is just, it keeps going. And yes, as much as what it was that they're trying to say it was, I don't know what happened on the road to the church because I wasn't there, and every media company is going to put their own spin on this, including the independents. They're going to put their own spin on it, but for the most part, from everything I've seen from it, it was wrong. Now, something might pop up that might change the way that I look at it, but from everything that we're seeing right now, it was wrong for them to do it the way that they did it. But yet, they still have to protect the federal grounds, the president, and the government. So, that is that. It's either going to be that, or we're going to see an overthrow. Alright, let's see what people might have made peace from. So, this video here from Heck Yes Jessica over on Twitter is, well, we'll watch the video and then we'll read the news article that went along with that. Let me get your sound on here. Protesters sitting down doing the Cupid Shuffle, which, I mean, of course, if you've been to any wedding in the last 13 years, you know this song, you know this dance, which may be why they play that one, because that would get everybody off the mind, but I mean, this is in Nebraska, too, so this is not necessarily one hotbed, but yes, of course, if they're going to stand in solidarity with each other, why not do that? You're just seeing protesters in this video, but I've seen other angles of this that involve police officers as well. Let's read what Newsweek has to say about this. Viral video shows Nebraska police join protesters in Cupid Shuffle dance. This is from Sue Kim. While protests following the death of George Floyd continue across the country, a group of police officers and community leaders in Lincoln, Nebraska have come together to launch the Hold Cops Accountable initiative. The launch of the new program was marked with a mass Cupid Shuffle dance outside the Malone Community Center, joined by several Lincoln police officers and members of the community. The scene was captured by Lincoln's KOLN-TV 1011 news reporter Ellis Wiltsey in a video that has received nearly 6,000 likes on Twitter and has been retweeted at least 1,500 times. The video was shared by KOLN-TV 1011 news anchor Bill Shammert, who described it as quite the sight happening in Lincoln tonight on his official Twitter account. The video symbolizes hope, in my opinion, which is something a lot of people need right now, he added. The HCA initiative will see town hall meetings held every month where members of the community can publicly voice any displeasure, compliments, complaints, concerns, or commendations concerning the Lincoln Police Department, according to the HCA agreement of the initiative shared by Shammert on Twitter. Although the HCA will not investigate complaints of misconduct, the HCA will provide any person who communicates a concern or misconduct the opportunity to file a formal complaint with the Lincoln Police Department's Internal Affairs Unit or the Citizens Police Advisory Board, the agreement notes. So if this is not IA, then what is this other than another instance of more government spending to try and come to a goal? And yes, I think that police need to be held accountable. I mean, even in the little itty-bitty county that I grew up in, you still had the power-tripped state troopers who were going out and picking on anybody that they thought was going to be a problem or was driving too fast. The people who love to hand out the tickets and do that anti-Fourth Amendment search of your car. And I've had that happen to me numerous times. Luckily, there was nothing contraband in any of them at the time, but yeah, I've had a few of those stops. Just a power trip stop. They stand there, they stand over you, try to intimidate you. But if this is the point that we're getting at, then why are we still having all the violence? And once again, this is in Lincoln. I understand that. This is different from New York City, or upstate New York rather, where we just saw riot gear police officers knock an old man down, but still. We've got to come to some consensus here, otherwise we're all going to be shooting at each other pretty soon. Alright, next one here, from the Daily Wire. Megan Rapinoe, John Legend, Lizzo, more celebs sign open letter to defund the police. This is from Amanda Prestigiacomo. Wealthy celebrities like soccer star Megan Rapinoe, musicians John Legend and Lizzo, and left-wing activist and actress Jane Fonda have all signed an open letter demanding the divestment from police. The letter was posted on defendingblacklives.org entitled A Letter to Demand Divestment from Police and Investment in Black Communities. According to Rolling Stone, the letter was released by activist Patrisse Cullors, a co-founder of Black Lives Matter and a founding member of the Movement for Black Lives, a coalition of more than 100 black rights organizations. Black Lives Matter is a radical anti-cop activist group. Its members have chanted for dead officers, and a 2016 lawsuit from the father of a slain Dallas officer accused in the activist group of inciting war on police that led to his son's death. Black communities across the nation are mourning the deaths of George Floyd, tortured to death by the Minneapolis police, Ahmaud Arbery, a jogger who was killed while running in a residential neighborhood in Brunswick, Georgia. That is going to wind up being a messy case, and nobody's hearing about it because, of course, these guys got arrested. Actually, we're going to talk a little bit about that in just a bit. Breonna Taylor, an EMT killed while asleep in her bed in Louisville, Kentucky. Drayson Reed in Indianapolis, and Tony McDade in Tallahassee, the letter starts. Their names are added to a devastatingly long list of black people who have been killed at the hands of vigilantes or law enforcement, not to mention the others whose names we don't yet know and may never know since they were killed without camera recording it. The COVID-19 deaths and the deaths caused by police terror are connected and consequential to each other. The United States does not have a national health care system. Oh, fuck you. This is it. This is what we're going to continue to see. All these people are going to use the next tragedy to try and get their pet projects rammed through against the wishes of the people of the country. It's their way or the fucking highway. And here's the biggest problem here. First off, they have no right or reason to come together and defund the police. They don't. They don't have any right to do that because that's not on a federal level. And some of these people I don't think are U.S. citizens. I don't know. I would have to look into all the people up on the letter. But here is the other reality. And this is something that you are not going to want to think about here. Now, yes, up in your inner city, I'm sure that you guys would love to go out and have utter anarchy, where the police aren't out there to do anything, to patrol anything, or make sure that any of you are safe, because you're so fed up with it, and of course the government is going to come in and save you, and be benevolent, and save you from all those evil rednecks out in the middle of the country, who just want to cling to guns, and they want to come out, and they want to come into the city and murder us all. We don't need police to protect us from any of that, because the government will do that. Well, what do you think the government's going to be made up of? But that's going to be a conversation for another time. The thing that you have to understand about this is this is going to be a mostly inner city thing, and a mostly left-leaning inner city thing. Now, anarchists and libertarians have been arguing for the privatization of police forever. That's one of the biggest things that they do is the privatization of police, because the state should not have the monopoly on violence or law enforcement. That is a libertarian ideal. However, if you defund the police, get rid of every police department, every police officer, everything else out there, I guarantee you that the suburban Karens of the world, the suburban moms, are going to come together and privately fund a police force in their neighborhoods. And they may even do it in conjunction with the city. They will fund a police force to try and make sure that their kids are safe and can go to school safe and can travel the road safe. They'll try and fund a private organization that will police what happens on the roads, that'll kick people out, a security force. And who's going to hold that security force accountable, by the way, if you don't have a state police department? I know that Jessica and Britt over on Jessica's show sat and talked about that fact of having an underwriter's laboratory, but I mean, yes, that would work in the long term, but in the short term, if these celebrities are defunding the police and the Karens of suburban America are coming together and making a stopgap in between there, we're going to have a few years before we have an advisory board to do that. So what do you think is going to happen in between? The people want protection. They want a neighborhood watch. They want to make sure that they're safe. And all these celebrities out there that are signing this letter want to make sure that they're not safe, because they feel that this police department is not making them safe. And yes, there are bad people in the police department. There absolutely are. But we don't have the structure or the infrastructure to move away from that system right now. I would love to see it. I would love to see a privatized police force, a privatized fire force, privatized roads, get the government out of it. You just hate roads. Well, okay, yeah, fuck that, I hate roads. Okay. I'm going off on a tangent on this one. Let's have a look at something else here. This is from Politico. Suddenly, public health officials say social justice matters more than social distance. I was really surprised when I saw this was from Politico, myself. This doesn't seem like their style by any means. But, hey, let's read on. I mean, even a blind squirrel gets a nut every once in a while. This is from Dan Diamond. For months, public health experts have urged Americans to take every precaution to stop the spread of COVID-19. Stay at home, steer clear of friends and extended family, and absolutely avoid large gatherings. Now, some of those experts are broadcasting a new message. It's time to get out of the house and join the mass protests against racism. We should always evaluate the risks and benefits of efforts to control the virus, Jennifer Nuzzo, a Johns Hopkins epidemiologist, tweeted on Tuesday. In this moment, the public health risks are not protesting to demand an end to systemic racism greatly exceed the harms of the virus. You know the meme where it's the SUV driving and you see the person falling out of the end, and you know it's usually the last thing that they had is the social initiative is labeled over that. Like when one of the big ones that they did was Christine Blasey Ford. Once Kavanaugh was confirmed, you never heard about her again, except for occasionally somebody mentions her. But for the most part, you never hear about her. This is what COVID-19 is. COVID-19 is the person they're throwing out of the SUV. The injustice that's evident to everyone now, right now, needs to be addressed. Abrar Karan, a Brigham and Women's Hospital physician, who's exhorted coronavirus experts to amplify the protest's anti-racist message, told me. While I have voiced concerns that protests risk creating more outbreaks, the status quo wasn't going to stop COVID-19 either, he wrote on Twitter this week. It's a message echoed by media outlets and some of the most prominent public health experts in America, like former Centers for Disease Control and Prevention Director Tom Frieden, who loudly warned against the efforts to rush reopening but is now supportive of the mass protests. Their claim, if we don't address racial inequality, it'll be much harder to fight COVID-19. There's also evidence that the virus doesn't spread easily outdoors, especially if people wear masks. What? What? That's not what you were saying just a few months ago. But from what I understand, from what I hear out of all of this, if you want to go to church, if you want to pray, if you want to go to the beach, or if you want to go out and buy something, go to work, feed your family, then yes, COVID is absolutely going to decimate our society. But if you want to get out there and protest something that the left likes, then, oh, well, COVID is just fine. You're immune from COVID as long as you're protesting. The experts maintain that their messages are consistent. Somehow. That they were always flexible on Americans going outside, that they want protesters to take precautions, and that they're prioritizing public health by demanding an urgent fix to systemic racism. Yeah, that sure does look like they're prioritizing public health and taking precautions, doesn't it? Has anybody else seen the fact that they are absolutely 100% taking all their precautions? But their messages are also confounding to many who spent the spring strictly isolated on the advice of health officials, only to hear that the need might not be so absolute after all. Yeah, and that's the other thing too. I mean, there was a massive protest in Lansing. There were several protests in Lansing, actually. The car protest, where they were social distancing. They were staying in their cars, away from each other, and 6 feet apart from each other, but still gridlocking traffic in Lansing. They were protesting the right way for a pandemic. And yet these people are gathered in shoulder to shoulder screaming Black Lives Matter. And they're somehow immune to the COVID-19. This is clown world. What the hell are we in? What timeline are we in? I can't even say this is the best timeline anymore. Can we go back to the prime timeline? Somehow, please. All right, next one here from the Daily Wire. Attorney General William Barr, we have evidence that Antifa has been involved in instigating violence during riots. This is from Daily Wire News. Attorney General William Barr said on Thursday that federal law enforcement officials have evidence that Antifa and other extremist groups have been involved in instigating and participating in acts of violence that have rocked the nation for days as riots have broken out following the deaths of George Floyd. But, I thought it was Proud Boys dressed up as Antifa. Oh my God. While many have peacefully expressed their anger and grief, others have hijacked protests to engage in lawlessness. Violent looting and arson, looting of businesses and public property, assaults on law enforcement, officers, and innocent people, and even the murder of a federal agent, Barr said at a news conference. Such senseless acts of anarchy are not exercises of the First Amendment rights. They are crimes designed to terrify fellow citizens and intimidate communities. My William Barr sounds a lot like JFK. As I told the governors Monday, we understand the distinction among three sets of actors. The large preponderance of those who are protesting are peaceful demonstrators who are exercising their First Amendment rights, Barr continued. At some demonstrations, there are groups that exploit the opportunity to engage in looting. And finally, at some demonstration, there are extremist agitators who are hijacking the protests to pursue their own separate and violent agenda. We have evidence that Antifa and other similar extremist groups, as well as actors of a variety of different political persuasions, have been involved in instigating and participating in the violent activity. We're also seeing foreign actors playing all sides to exacerbate the violence, Barr continued. The Justice Department is also working closely with our state and local partners to address violent riots around the country. Our federal law enforcement efforts are focused on violent instigators. And there is the full address. It is on the Daily Wire, ready to read. So, I mean, he's got evidence. I would love to see the evidence. But, of course, if he's still going on an investigation, then a lot of that's going to be classified. But, man, that would be nice to see for the rest of the country, just to expose it and see, show what's happening. And, yes, once again, I understand these people have the right to a speedy trial by a jury of their peers. So they need to classify everything until they can get to the point where they can do that. But that's... yeah, I'd love to see that. Of course, we are seeing Antifa out there, so there's the evidence of that. But if there's actual evidence that it's Antifa, not Proud Boys dressed up as Antifa, that'd be interesting to see because, well, it does lend credence to the fact that while it may be unconstitutional for Antifa to be named a terrorist group, it may lend credence to the fact that, yes, they are. At least shake up their public image a little bit more, even though they don't have a great one to begin with. All right, we got a few more here. From Fox News, lawyer, landmark suit against Antifa is for all Americans who are threatened by these criminals. This is from Yale Halon. Attorney Harmeet Dillon of the Center for American Liberty told the Ingram Angle Thursday that she had filed the first ever lawsuit against the far left group Antifa to protect journalists and other Americans who are threatened by these criminals. Dillon filed the lawsuit on the behalf of journalist Andy Ngo, after he was reportedly attacked in 2019 while covering the violence incited by the group in Portland, Oregon. Hold on, I need a drink of water. I'm getting mush-mouthed here. On one occasion, the lawsuit claims Ngo was beaten by a mob that continued to harass him as he attempted to walk away. Dillon told host Lauren Ingram that Ngo continues to be stalked and claimed that the Portland authorities continued to do nothing to protect his safety. By the way, that includes the U.S. attorney who I spoke to at the beginning of the process, she said. We waited several months, and this is a job for law enforcement because law enforcement has the tools to go surveil and get warrants and all of that. Yeah, get law enforcement involved in something that's protesting law enforcement. That does seem like a circular firing squad, doesn't it? It should have been law enforcement doing this action, not me, Dillon said, but because they refused to do that, we cannot let Andy continue to live under these threats. Dillon said that the suit, which includes the claims of assault, battery, intentional infliction of emotional distress, and violations of Oregon's Racketeer Influence and Corrupt Organization Act, that's a mouthful, is on behalf of every journalist who has felt threatened by the group. It's not just Andy, she said. They attack every journalist who dared attack them and make these so-called journalists back off. Dillon then turned her wrath to journalists who she says are effectively a spokesperson for Antifa because of their liberal viewpoints. They protect them and make excuses for them and demonize Andy and other journalists who criticize them, she said. And then they use those Saul-Alinsky tactics to make Andy the enemy. Earlier Thursday, Dillon told Fox News that the timing of the lawsuit was unrelated to the riots that have taken place across the country following the death of George Floyd. Her comments came as FBI Director Christopher Wray announced that Antifa was among the groups that are being investigated for acts of violence in various cities over the past several days. So, I mean, the timing may be unrelated. I'll give it that. They may be doing this independent of that because, I mean, when Andy Ngo got attacked, that was weeks ago, months ago. It could be a century ago, as long as this year has taken. But I mean, that was forever ago. So they've been working on this for a while. But I'm guessing the fact that that Dillon got onto Fox News does have something to do with the fact that all of these riots are going on right now. I'll give them that. I would guess that, but I mean, good. I don't know where they're going to get the money from because they're not organized. They're independent. They're sleeper cells. They have no funding mechanism. But there's something there that's getting bricks out there. Elaine, Libertarian Red, actually put a video out to me, but I couldn't get it verified up here. But that actually showed people dropping off the bricks for the protests. I saw the video, and I mean, something's funding all this. There is something that's funding it all. But let's keep going. Oh, I got another video for you. So Veritas got back into the news this week. From James O'Keefe, breaking Project Veritas infiltrated Antifa. Practices like eye gouging, it takes very little pressure to injure somebody's eyes. It's not boxing, it's not kickboxing, it's like destroying your enemy. And we will go for a little bit of this. I'm not going to do the whole video because it's 4 minutes long and we're already up against the clock. But let's check just a little bit of this one here. Let me turn your ears back on over here. I got to throw mine on.
I've been undercover with Real City Antifa since July of 2000. Depending on the setting, if I were to be caught or found out in a setting where I am present with them, it could escalate to violence against me.
Don't be that f***ing guy with the goddamn spiked brass knuckles getting photos taken of you. Police are going to be like, perfect, we can prosecute these f***ers. Look how violent they are. Right? Not that we're not, but we need to hide them.
So currently I am a prospect for Rose City Antifa, and I am about halfway through the prospecting process to become a full-fledged member of Antifa.
If you ruin their day, if you like heckle them, you make them feel like they look ridiculous, you make them feel outnumbered, and therefore their whole yay yay America Trump thing is going to go by the wayside.
They reached out to me through Proton Mail, and we went back and forth, and there was an interview set to meet up in Portland. So to verify that it was me, they had me wear a white shirt and have a water bottle and show up at a Starbucks where a person
Of course it was
was
Starbucks.
going to ID me and approach me and asked who I was, and I told them, and I followed them to the destination where the interview was going to be held. There, we went to a place called Imperial. They were getting this trade craft from someone else, someone with much more experience, someone who did this for a living. Caroline, which is the founder of RCA, moved to Sweden with her husband, who is a dual citizen. So there's a back and forth with a European connection.
So with this, of course, this does make it really, really hard to stay with the narrative that, well, these are just sleeper cells and they're people that are coming up. They act like the same thing, but there's no organization. And this is clearly showing some organization that goes along with this. And I mean, O'Keefe is a legend at this point. He has been able to get into these groups and actually expose some of what's going on here. But I mean, this goes right along with the suit that we were seeing earlier too, because, like I said, if the narrative about Antifa is true, then they wouldn't. The lawyer wouldn't be able to get a penny out of any of them because there would be no structure for him to get any sort of money out of. But really, from this interview here, it does sound like there is a pretty rigid structure that goes along with this, and probably a pretty deep-pocketed funding mechanism as well. So I don't know if anything's going to come to this. I know that this is going to be another instance where the mainstream media goes out and smears James O'Keefe as some sort of hack journalist and selectively edited, but I mean, this is huge. All right, let's keep going here. Let me get the live chat back up here. All right, from NBC. This is just stupidity. This is what this world is actually coming to. NYPD officer appears to make white power sign at protest, prompting probe. This is from Janelle Griffith and Matteo Mascella. A video of a uniformed New York City police officer appearing to make a white power symbol at George Floyd protest Saturday in New York has prompted an internal review. The video showing the officer making the apparent OK hand gesture. You called it, Midge. That's what it was, the OK one. Touching the thumb and index finger to make a circle with the remaining three fingers held outstretched was posted to social media over the weekend. Folks, how the fuck did we get here? How did we get to the point where this is a hate sign? How? How do we get the... Oh my God. NBC News is not publishing or linking the video to avoid providing a platform to apparent expressions of hate or white supremacy. Oh my God. Oh my God. The OK gesture has been used by people around the world for centuries, typically to signal consent, according to the Anti-Defamation League. Recently, the hand signal has been appropriated to represent the letters W and P to signify white power. No, that was a 4chan troll to you guys. You guys are still on this. I can't believe this. Oh my God. It's so stupid, it makes my fucking head hurt. Stemming from a hoax in 2017 by members of the website 4chan. You know it's a hoax! An anonymous and unrestricted online message board, the ADL says. At the Saturday demonstration at New York City's Union Square, the officer made what appeared to be that gesture into the camera sight of a rapper, China Mac, who was recording himself at the protest. Another man nearby recorded the incident and provided a copy of his footage to NBC News. He requested anonymity out of fear of retribution. This is what they spend news time on. And they wonder why the alt media is fucking kicking their asses. My God. My God. Can we go back to the prime timeline somehow? This is a real NBC News article. They actually spent journalism on this. All right, we got to keep going. From the Daily Wire, Ahmaud Arbery shooting. Friend claims McMichael used the N-word after killing. This is from Paul Bois. The shooting case of Ahmaud Arbery has taken a dramatic turn this week with allegations that the shooter used the N-word shortly after killing the unarmed 25-year-old. According to Fox News, William Bryan, the friend who shot the infamous video of Gregory and Travis McMichael chasing Ahmaud Arbery down before allegedly killing him, told the Glynn County court this week that Travis McMichael said, "Okay, I will usually say what's behind the bleeps on this, but that one I'm not going to do, unfortunately." After the confrontation. I mean, you guys can see it. You can see the stars. You know what's there. I don't have to spoon feed that one to you. William Bryan, the man who shot the infamous viral video of Arbery's death, told investigators that ex-cop Gregory McMichael and his son Travis McMichael chased Arbery with their truck and blocked his exit before opening fire and killing a young black man, reported the outlet. That admission, along with the use of racial expletives, will likely factor into the Department of Justice's decision whether to pursue federal hate crime charges against Arbery's accused killers, or it's going to get thrown out because, as far as I can tell, it's hearsay. And here's why I say this. With what we are going through right now, the fact that this was engineered in order to get the most outrage out of the country, which it was, anybody who tells you otherwise is lying to you at this point. The thing with Floyd was engineered in a specific way to make sure that we got the most outrage possible out of it. With that in mind, if there had been video of McMichael saying that, it would not have been cut out of the end of it. We would not just be hearing about it now. So yes, of course, the videographer can come out and say, well, yes, I heard him say it. But there's no evidence to it. You stopped recording before that. Or you edited it out. But I don't think you edited it out. Because, of course, like I said, with everything else that went on here, of course, you would have heard this. You would have heard it. This wouldn't be something that... I mean, when do people stop recording? You don't just stop recording once the incident is over. You keep going until you know that there's not going to be another fire. So this is just a bullshit excuse to try and bring this one back up to the top. And I don't buy a second of it. I don't buy a word of this. I don't buy a word of this. This is just something else to try and get people more outraged and back up into the race war. So that's what this is. And of course I could be wrong, but like I said, the biggest part to me is the fact that you're just hearing about it now. And not, 3 weeks ago when this first happened. How long has this been? How long has this fucking year been? Alright, next one from CNN. This is just a shorty article. I need to read some of these before I do this. But from CNN. Paul holds up anti-lynching bill. See Harrison Booker's response. Senator Rand Paul explains why he's holding up the popular bipartisan legislation to make lynching a federal crime. Senator Kamala Harris and Senator Cory Booker take to the floor to respond. We're not going to watch this video, but good for Rand Paul because, I mean, murder is already a federal crime. Why do you need to make it extra bad murder? That's the same thing with hate crime. That's the same. That's exactly the same thing, actually, with what we just saw from the Arbery case. They want to push it as hate crime. It's already murder. They're already going to prison for killing another man, and probably going for life, because, I mean, that's going to be, well, not life, but quite a long time. That's going to be murder too. Unintentional. Why do we need another law to go above and beyond murder? Why does it need to be super, super secret, extra evil, bad murder on a federal level? No, we don't need an anti-lynching bill. We just need murder law. That's it. All right, next one here. Something that's not related to racism. Sig Sauer gives up in Germany, from Peter Reed. This is from GL News. Sig Sauer closes its German location. However, the pandemic is not the only cause of the bankruptcy. The arms manufacturer cannot win large orders beforehand. He sees his international orientation as the reason. The arms manufacturer Sig Sauer wants to close its German production site in Eckernford in Schleswig-Holstein at the end of the year. This was announced by the management. The local location disadvantages did not allow economic production of sports and government weapons in the future, the company said. The council and the workforce have already been informed of the economic situation. Accordingly, about 125 employees lost their jobs. F in the chat for the employees. The company pointed out that German legislation is increasingly restricting of the use of sporting weapons when it comes to awarding government's contracts. A few local producers are preferred by both the German police and the Bundeswehr. The Sig Sauer was systematically excluded from the tenders because of the company's international orientation. Most of the company's developments came from the United States. Managing director Kim Testane told the Bild newspaper that Sig Sauer was unable to prevail against the competition on large orders. For example, with the new assault rifle, the Bundeswehr, or from the Bundeswehr. And that's just it. I mean, Germany will be encourage and be globalist on absolutely everything else, but God forbid they use an American weapon, or let an American weapon be sold within their country and within their borders. But sure, slam that border open for everything else in the world, especially in the European Union. Let's do everything we can to include globalism, unless it involves a United States weapons maker. So I thought that was interesting. Of course, that's something else to see. And COVID did claim a few projects around the world as well. I was quite sad. And this happened a couple of weeks ago, and I can't believe that I didn't hear about it now. But, I'm a big Ford guy. I think most people know that. I'm wearing a Ford t-shirt right now. So I'm a big-time Ford guy, and I just found out that they plan to use the Mustang version of the 5-liter, which is tuned for 425 horse, in a Ranger, and call it the Raptor Ranger. But they put that on hold in Australia. They were going to introduce it in Australia and see if it could take off for the rest of the world. But they put that on hold because the company had to restructure some of its assets due to COVID-19. And that makes me sad. That makes me very sad. Because what do we need in this world more than a V8 powered little truck with 425 ponies? And yes, Germans need SIG. I need a SIG. They're really expensive though. But I could go for one as well. Alright, couple more here. Then we'll head on out of here. GOP Senator Murkowski struggling with whether to vote for Trump. No, she's not. She made that decision a long time ago. This is from Alexander Bolton. Senator Lisa Murkowski. On Thursday, praised former Defense Secretary Jim Mattis's scathing rebuke of President Trump as true and honest and necessary, and admitted she is struggling with whether to vote for the president. She's not struggling. She's already not going to fucking do it. I thought that General Mattis's words were true and honest and necessary and overdue, Murkowski, the chair of the Senate Energy and National Resources Committee, said on her way to a vote in the Capitol on Thursday. Why didn't she just switch parties by this point? When I saw General Mattis's comments yesterday, I felt like perhaps we're going to get to the point where we can be more honest with the concerns we might hold internally and have the courage of our convictions and speak up, she told Washington Post Paul Kane, who pulled the remarks and sent them to the other Senate reporters. Asked if she could vote for Trump in the 2020 election, Murkowski admitted, "I'm struggling with it. I've struggled with it for a long time." So, and here's why she's struggling with it. She's not actually struggling with it. She's not going to do it. But in order to get the re-election bid, she actually has to pretend that she's playing nice with Trump. Because if she does try to jump ship and go to the other party, she's going to get castigated even further. She is looking out for her re-election and absolutely nothing else at this point. She decided long ago that she was an anti-Trump person, a never-Trumper. And now she's just trying to save face. Is Murkowski up for 2020? I don't even know. Is she up for 2020 or is she going to be one of those that's in 2022? I think she's up for 2020, so that could be a part of it too. So, yeah, there's a lot of things going on with this. This is a lot of just trying to hold on to power. All right, one more here. And then we'll read the names of everybody else who commented and put stuff into the live chat for the week. So if you want to get in the live chat and you haven't spoken yet today, get your name in there now because I will be reading everybody's name as we go on. And I actually wrote the list of everybody here, so I'll read the names of everybody who did throughout the week too. I was responsible this week. I didn't depend on technology. The good old pen and paper. So, from the New York Post to close out the week, authors retract study claiming hydroxychloroquine had fatal side effects. This is from Bob Fredericks. The authors of a study published in the medical journal of The Lancet said that taking hydroxychloroquine to treat coronavirus could be fatal, retracting their findings Thursday after multiple reports questioned the data. The database belonged to a small Illinois company called Surgisphere, which is owned by Dr. Sapan Desai, one of the 4 co-authors of the study, which has a science fiction writer and an adult content model on its small staff, who have little or no medical or science backgrounds. The other 3 co-authors, including Dr. Mandeep De Mehra, a professor at Harvard Medical School, retracted the article after their attempt to verify the data's accuracy and authenticity were thwarted by Desai, who did not return requests for comment from the Post. We launched an independent third-party peer review of the Surgisphere with the consent of Sapan Desai to evaluate the origination of the database elements, to confirm the completeness of the database, and to replicate the analyses presented in the paper, their statement said, the New York Times reported. Our independent peer reviewers informed us that the Surgisphere would not transfer the full dataset, client contracts, and the full ISO audit report to their servers for analysis, as such transfer would violate client agreements and confidentiality requirements, the authors continued, referring to a type of audit that seeks to determine whether Surgisphere, in this case, actually did what it claimed to do. No, of course they didn't. And of course this is getting retracted now, because at this point we've got something else sitting up on top to hurt Trump. It's all about the Orange Man bad, and the Orange Man was out to say that hydroxychloroquine was possibly a treatment for the coronavirus. At a time where we desperately were begging for a treatment for the coronavirus that was not only good and effective, but feasible and affordable for the majority of the people, because this was supposed to be the pandemic that infected everybody and killed everybody and destroyed the entire foundation of America, that killed all of us. We were all going to die. 2 million people dead instantly, because COVID-19 is an instant death sentence. As soon as you find out you have it, it's an instant death sentence. So we were desperate and we were looking for a treatment, and one got offered up because it reduced the viral load and reduced a lot of the symptoms while your body took the time to fight off the infection itself. But it was touted as something that's deadly, in spite of the fact that we've been using it for decades at this point. It's readily available because it's anti-malarial. People use it for lupus. But no, it's dangerous. It might kill you. You might have a heart complication. All this other stuff. And now that it can't hurt Trump anymore, oh, well, by the way, never mind. And that is going to be it for the week. So now it's time to thank everybody who came in and made this great for the week. So let's go out and check out for today. We've got Ron Helton in the chat. Murkowski's up for re-election in 2022. Okay, well, still, I think she's trying to save face at some point because she knows that the Democrats won't have her. Sully Blue is in here with some of his inventory. Seawall 728, pen and paper technology. Yeah, but I've been depending on Restream.io to keep a record of people because they used to do it, and YouTube for keeping my live chat up, which they do not because people got spicy in it. Which is fine, because then people can't go back and dox you later on for spicy things you said in the chat. That's okay. I can use pen and paper if it keeps you guys safe. Let's see who else is in here. Jessica Green is in here. Thanks for coming in and checking. I kind of thought that Jessica was going to come in because I said I was going to go after celebrities. Yeah, Bars, East Coast, Yankee, NYC. Yeah, well, it still sounds quite a bit like my JFK impression. Let's see who else is in here. Looks like we've seen those names. Looks like we got some bots in here this morning. Our I4IRD play is giving me ad viewers. Should I click the link? Should I do it? Should I be a boomer and just say, oh, yeah, I want followers, primes, and viewers? Nick Sam did the same thing. That is it for the day. So let's see who else was in here for today. We'll work backwards. On Thursday, we had Ron Helton in here. Seawall 728, Sully Blue, Dabba Cannabis 420. I haven't seen him today. He's been in here every other day this week. And Zawa Mean, who is a new name, and I saw that you didn't know what contemporary meant. That just means kind of what's going on currently. But I don't know if he spoke English either. On Wednesday, we had Ron Helton, Seawall 728. The RRC came in and checked us out, so thanks to all you guys for that. And Steel and Souls 15. Well, I haven't seen that name in quite a while either, so thanks for coming and checking us out. On Tuesday, we had Miami 1984, Ron Helton, Sully Blue, Dabba Cannabis 420, and Ruth Hensel over on the Periscope. And Ruth, if you are watching over on the Periscope right now, just keep in mind that I can see you and your chat, but the the Restream chat bot doesn't work with Periscope, so you can't see anybody else's responses. But people were trying to respond to you in the chat. But thank you for coming and checking us out. And on Monday, we had Sully Blue, Ron Helton, Dabba Cannabis 420, Dean Domino 81, a Fallout fan, of course. I was interested to see that. Unsatiable 1776, who got up nice and early to come and check out the show, so that's very much appreciated. He's out on the West Coast, so it was 5:30 when I started the show for him, so thanks for checking that out. Baumba, new name in there that I haven't seen over on DLive, Ruth Hensel again, and the Generational Gap came and checked us out as well. So that is everybody here. We will be back here next week. There's going to be a little bit of structural change going on next week because I'm going on vacation. I do at this point intend to have contemporary every day. At this point, there is not going to be an Ed's World next week because I could not find anybody to host. I have a guest, but I don't have a host. So that actually may change in the near future. I am going to make an itinerary just in case I can find somebody to host, but at this point I do not have a host, and I will be on the road for Ed's World, so I will not be able to host myself. So at this point there's no Ed's World, but that show is going to be changing up here in the near future, it sounds like, as well, so I'm going to get some confirmation on that. I will probably have an announcement for you guys when I get back from vacation, so make sure you come back and check that out. If you like contemporary, you can go and check us out back on demand over on YouTube, and some of the episodes make it up to BitChute. I do have to take some time and get everything actually manually uploaded to BitChute because my days on YouTube are numbered, and I know it. So go and check us out over there, or you can take us on the audio platforms, iTunes, Google Play, and Stitcher. Remember, if you're over on iTunes, leave us that 5-star rating and a good review. That always helps us move up the charts. All right, everybody, go out with the rest of your weekend. Enjoy it. There's not going to be an Ed Talk this weekend because it is the off week on this. And there's going to be no gaming this coming week as well. But for the rest of it, make sure you guys go out and enjoy, keep yourselves informed, and have a good weekend. We will see you next week. Take care.